Psalm 127 verses 3 to 5. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. And we've also got other scriptures concerning children. Proverbs 1, 8 to 9. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. They are a garland to grace your head and a chain to adorn your neck. Proverbs 13:1. A wise son heeds his father's instruction, but a mocker does not respond to rebukes. Proverbs 29:17. Discipline your children, and they will give you peace. They will bring you the delights you desire. And there's many more. Jesus Christ spoke about children. Throughout the Old and the New Testament, we read about children, their innocence, and the fact to bring them up in the way of the Lord, in the way of him who created all things. And also we read it is the parents' responsibility to educate their children, to guide their children, to ensure that their children are brought up correctly. And what are we seeing in this world today? I mean, it's gone on in the past many times through many different cultures whereby the children were taken away from the parents because the state or the philosophy or the tyrant at that time, because they had an agenda to push, would take the children away from the parents in the sense of removing the parental rights and removing the parental obligations and removing the very fact that it is the influence of the parents on the children in order to guide them in what is right. Yes, there are some parents who abuse their children, and we've got standards as to what is abuse for children, and mainly, unless of course we're living in the kind of world we are now entering into, whereby there are those in authority, for instance in the United Nations and other positions now, they've weaned their way in, they've wormed their way into positions of authority whereby they are now saying they are the children's parents, they are the new standard, and parents must adhere to this system or they will lose their children, or they're haters, the parents are haters. And they are now becoming the guardians of our children in order to push their worldview, their immorality and their sickness upon our youth. We see that right throughout society. Children can now go for abortions without the parents' consent. Children can now appeal to a doctor or some other governmental body in order to change their sex, even though that's an impossibility, because XY equals male biological, XX female biological. All these things now are happening, and it's designed and deliberate. And I'm going to come to an article now. And in this article, we read how the slow incremental steps of sexualizing your children are coming into fruition. And that is using the United Nations. They've just released an article on the 8th of March discussing that when it comes down to children underage sex and children, that we should now be looking at whether it's the child's consent to sex that matters and not the law. And we shall read that now. Here we have the International Commission of Justice, which the United Nations basically has given the okay to. And this report, or this commission here, the 8th of March Principles for a Human Rights-Based Approach to Criminal Law Prescribing Conduct Associated with Sex, Reproduction, Drug Use, HIV, Homelessness and Poverty. Now I'll put this, link this below, and also you'll be able to do a Google search or whatever to find this. And this is what is being referenced, and it's part 3, application to the criminalisation of conduct associated with sex, reproduction, drug use, HIV, homelessness and poverty. And now we're going to move on to a shocking report issued by international legal experts with backing of the United Nations appears to open the floodgates to normalise sex with minors. Sexual conduct involving persons below the domestically prescribed minimum age of consent to sex may be consensual in fact, if not in law. The Geneva-based International Commission of Jurists, the report that I just put on the screen before, wrote in March with an assist from UNAIDS and the Office of the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights. The report is titled The 8th of March Principles for a Human Rights-Based Approach to Criminal Law Prescribing Conduct Associated with Sex, Reproduction, Drug Use, HIV, Homelessness and Poverty. Notice they just all shove it all in there and just try to get it through without actually highlighting what they're saying. They're just cramming it in there with lots of other things in order to bury it, no doubt. It is published front and centre on the group's website. It does not actively call for decriminalising sex between adults and minors. I must make that, highlight that right now, because there are fact checkers out there who said, yeah, but we're not saying it's decriminalising sex between minors. And this article is saying that it does not actively call for decriminalising sex between adults and minors. As I've said, it's all about the consent. If the child is given consent, then it's acceptable. That's what they're bringing in, thin end of the wedge. But it states that children have both the capacity and the legal right to make sexual decisions. Come on, folks, if you can't see there's something wrong with that. This is the same way children have the right to determine whether they want to be recognised as a boy or a girl. Okay? Children have the right to decide whether they should be able to be allowed and get it paid for to mutilate their bodies, to remove their penises, to do whatever they do to their vaginas, to remove their breasts, to give them drugs to stop them developing into their full potential of biological male or biological female. Now, a child is not, no matter what you say or try to play with words in sophistry or change definitions, no child is in a position to fully grasp their sexuality, to fully grasp everything that these people are saying children are able to fully grasp in order to make decisions that can ruin their lives. According to the United Nations, children may consent to sex with adults. This has been the plan all along, social media influencer Ian Miles Cheong tweeted over the weekend to his 538,000 followers. The report does not offer a suggested age of sexual consent. It was released on March the 8th in recognition of International Women's Day. International Women's Day. Come on, folks, wake up. They're hypocrites, these people. And in one breath, they're pushing it's okay for biological males to claim they are biological, or females, even though they can't be biological females, to be able to go into biological females' dressing rooms, to be able to take over biological females' sports and dominate. This is got nothing to do with women. It's got nothing to do with children. It's got to do with the perversions and the sick, twisting and the denial and the hatred and the rebellion against the laws and the natural laws that God has put in place. Biological female, biological male, to procreate. God's ordained way, God's ordained process, his creation, and they are God haters, and they're coming after your children. They're already there, folks. They've got your kids in there. Remember the what was it called? Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, I think. And the kiddie thing with the lollipops, and he'd go round and he'd have this big cage inside this horse-drawn cart. And when the kids went in and took the lollipop, boom, right behind him, it'd close, they'd be locked in, and he'd be off with the kids. This is them, folks. This is them. I can't remember what it was called. Perhaps you can remind me by putting it in the comments below. But this is what they're doing. They're in positions of power, influence, and now they're taking your kids away from you because they've got an agenda. They have got this narrative to push, and it's all about hating. They don't love, they hate, they want to mutilate. These are mutilators of the flesh. The once unthinkable recommendations from an international cabal of global elite legal minds appears to suggest that paedophilia could be normalised. Now, I'm going to say, they don't say that in that report. They don't say it's okay to have sex with kids. What they're saying, I'll reiterate it for those who are going to try and fact check this, so they can't just suddenly say, oh, this is imbalanced, this is that, or this is that. I have mentioned the very fact that they're not saying that, or they've not said that. It's all about the consent. If the kid gives consent, it's acceptable. That's what they're saying. Okay? So, the once unthinkable recommendations from an international cabal of global elite legal minds appears to suggest that paedophilia could be normalised. It touched off a horrified reaction on social media around the world. Ian Miles Cheong, according to the United Nations, children may consent to sex with adults. And I'll read, this is taken now from the report, okay, this screenshot. And you see it underlined in red. Sexual conduct involving persons below the domestically prescribed minimum age of consent to sex may be consensual in fact, if not in law. Consensual. It's all about saying the child is giving consent. A child, okay? A child who still can't drink, okay? A child who has still not got the capacity to fully grasp what is going on here, the repercussions of this. The United Nations is full of paedophiles. Former NHL star and Canadian Olympic gold medalist Theo Fleury shouted on Twitter, sexual conduct involving persons below the domestically prescribed minimum age of consent to sex may be consensual in fact, if not in law. International Commission of Jurists, I'll read that again. Sexual conduct involving persons below the domestically prescribed minimum age of consent to sex may be consensual in fact, if not in law. International Commission Jurists. And that's in that report. I've read it. You can read it yourselves. It's playing with words. This hideous UN report seeks to decriminalise sex, even between children and minors. Evil, tweeted women's rights activist Michelle O'Reilly of Melbourne, Australia. A women's rights activist. Okay. A woman's yeah. She's probably classed as a hater now because she do. Well, I'm not going to put words in her mouth, but anyway, she's probably classed as a hater because she said that you don't care about your children. They want to consent to sex with whoever they want to have consent with. Then you should just let them have consensual sex. You're not a proper parent. We're going to take them kiddies off you. Ooh, look in the children's homes. What happened in the children's homes in Wales, in England, in Scotland, in Ireland? Yes, what happened? The elite came in. The elite came in. The paedophiles came in and raped and sexually abused children, and in some instances killed them, buried them. I think that was in Northern Ireland. Things like those kind of things were happening. Yes, the elite. Jeremy Epstein and his cronies. Yes, yep, grooming gangs. Let's take the children and have sex with them. Let's abuse them. Now let's change the laws. Let's suggest it's all up to the child. If the child says, Yes, it's okay to have sex with me, and it's consent, and it's acceptable. Yes, whatever. No responsibility from the adults anymore. It's all about the children. The children are the new adults. The adults are now the new children who can't think for themselves. That child needs protection. According to the United Nations, children may consent to sex with adults. This has been the plan all along, and it goes on again. She notes that its publication on International Women's Day succeeded in gaslighting women everywhere. The International Commission of Jurists said in its report, in this context, the enforcement of criminal law should reflect the rights and capacity of persons under 18 years of age to make decisions about engaging in consensual sexual conduct and their right to be heard in matters concerning them. Says it all there, doesn't it, folks? In this context, the enforcement of criminal law should reflect the rights and capacity of persons under 18 years of age to make decisions about engaging in consensual sexual conduct and their right to be heard in matters concerning them. So we're going to scrap the protection in law if that child is consented. But I wonder if that child was coerced into that consenting to having sex with whomever because they've consented. Just like it's okay for children now to go for an abortion without telling the parents. Just like now in Canada, you're not allowed to counsel those who are homosexuals, to counsel those who are going for considering some kind of body mutilation because they believe there's something they're not. In the same way, folks, it's all coming in. It said further, pursuant to their evolving capacities and progressive autonomy, persons under 18 years of age should participate in decisions affecting them with due regard to their age, maturity and best interests, and with specific attention to non-discrimination guarantees. See where it's heading, folks? See where it's heading. Persons under 18 years of age should participate in decisions affecting them with due regard to their age, maturity and best interests. International Commission of Jurists. The shocking recommendations from international legal elites underscores a number of major recent events in the United States and around the world that have unfolded with bewildering speed. Each development suggests people in positions of authority have worked to break traditional legal bounds, social structures and once universal taboos for the purpose of sexualising children. That's what it is, sexualising children. Among them, the disturbing case of Jeffrey Epstein, who was convicted of running an international prostitution ring, reportedly provided underage girls to global power players. Yes, there's the classic case, folks, right up there for you to see. Jeffrey Epstein, the global cabal, passing around underage children, and now they'll just be able to say, yeah, but they consented. All twisted round child's back. Consented, they consented. I, as an adult, have got no responsibility. That child consented for me to have sex with them. Yes, I'm free. I'm free. The child is now the adult. They decide, because they're the wisdom. They know everything. Yes. Oh, the little kiddie catcher in the chitty bang bang will be so pleased with all this now. That child consented to getting into the wagon and the thing closing behind them, and I take them away. Oh yes. In addition, educators in many instances now brazenly state that parents have limited rights over their children while their classrooms grow increasingly sexualised. Yes, they are, folks. Classrooms increasingly sexualised, and you as a parent have got no right, and you as a child, you will give your consent or you won't pass your exams. Okay, little child, come on now, let's get in the cloakroom, let's get in the whatever, let's get in the canteen when it's not dinner time. Yes, come on, let's all get in there, let's get in there, let's get these transgenders in to read your stories. Yes, and make you think, ooh, this is nice, this is a nice place, and brainwashing them. From long years in the law and as a proudly gay man, I know profoundly how criminal law signals which groups are deemed worthy of protection. So here we have this gay guy. He wants to be gay. He's got God to answer to, isn't he? If he wants to stick his penis inside another man's bottom, that's up to him, okay? But he's going to stand before God and give an account of why he's done that, okay? Now, this is the guy, okay, who is given his view on this report. And he's saying, from long years in the law and as a proudly gay man, I know profoundly how criminal law signals which groups are deemed worthy of protection and which of condemnation and ostracism, wrote retired Judge Edwin Cameron of the Constitutional Court of South Africa in the foreword of the report. In this way, the criminal law performs an expressive function and its dramatic consequences on people's lives. It sometimes entails a harshly discriminatory impact on groups identified with the disapproval of stigmatised conducts. Fox News Digital reached out to the International Commission of Jurists, UNAIDS and the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights for comment. And the report was over a 5-year process. But anyway, there you go, folks. That's it now. You've got to look out for the children because there are those in positions of power. The pedos are out there, folks. They wormed the way in. And now they are in positions of influence. And they are changing definitions of words. They're changing everything that we know. They're trying to change the structure of society to fit their perversions.